Welcome to Notes to My Legal Self. Together, we explore topics of interest to in-house lawyers. We cover career, practice tips, leadership, the future of law, mental health, legal tech, and much, much more. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They're an act of courage. Want to get the most from this conversation? Ask questions, comment, like, follow, say hello. In short, engage. Finally, have fun. In-house legal practice is a serious business, but you don't have to take yourself seriously. Let's begin. Here's your host, Olga Mack.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another live episode of Visual IQ for Lawyers on Notes to My Legal Self. We are continuing our special series celebrating the launch of our American Bar Association book, Visual Literacy for Lawyers. I hope you have a copy. It is a good read. We've been getting lots of great reviews and endorsements on that, and we love the way it looks. You can also download the book's companion guide for free right now on visualiqforlawyers.com. That is the best way to follow along with our guests and see their case studies. In fact, we're going to discuss them in action as we talk. And today we are diving into a topic that is very important and hits very hard in modern legal practice. Contracts as relationships, not just management tools, but relationships. And relationships are with people. Most professional service agreements are still written as very defensive legal documents filled with dense blocks or text that create distance instead of trust. And as you know, when you show up in a relationship defensive, that is not a way to build a relationship. So we, the co-authors of this book and my co-panelists today and my co-host firmly believe that client-centered lawyering starts with changing that. And contracts can do more than manage risk. Sure, they manage risk. They do so much more. They can also set expectations. They can build confidence and strengthen the relationship from the very, very beginning. In fact, from the very first conversation. So today I am joined by my co-author, Tessa, who is co-hosting, and a few panelists. Tessa, why don't you kick it off?
Hey, hi, Olga. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited for today's episode. For those who don't know me, I'm Tessa Manuello. I'm the founder and CEO of Legal Creatives. I'm all about empowering legal professionals to bring clarity, build trust, and put humans first in the age of AI. So whether it's legal information, contracts, legal workflows, we can do so much better by placing humans at the center of everything we do. So today I'm so excited because we're going to see and talk real transformation, taking real life case studies from our two special guests who I deeply admire. I have known each of them for years, Milva Finnegan and Blanca Leon. I've met Milva through, I think, different writing and event collaborations. And Blanca, well, she's a stellar graduate from our online academy. And I'm super proud of how she has designed her practice. It's really inspiring. So Milva and Blanca, welcome to the show. So stoked to have you on this live. If you want to say a quick hello, introduce yourself. Start by Milva, and then Blanca.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm Milva Finnegan. I'm a contracts manager and CEO of Karhu Consulting, a small contracts consulting company. I am so excited that you guys featured some of my work in your book. I love the book you've done. And I look forward today to actually talk a little deeper about the examples and how you can use user-centered design and actually build relationships while you do contracts work.
Hello, I'm Blanca, and thank you so much for inviting me to have this conversation with you guys. I'm founder and CEO of the Embodied Lawyer, and I support coaches, consultants, and other purpose-led founders to create contracts that are rooted in clarity, connection, and deep alignment with the values that their business, for the business that they're building.
All right. Well, I thoroughly reviewed and reread a number of times now both of your case studies, and I want to start with friction, because both of your case studies deal with agreements where a primary goal is building connection and trust, and I really like that. In fact, I like it so much that I joined a business that focuses on exactly that. It's sort of become a life mission, really. So, whether it's onboarding a coaching client, booking an event speaker, or welcoming a new legal client, trust is sort of important, and friction is a big part of it. Milva, in your case study with nonprofit organization, the original speaker agreement draft was, a 7-page wall of dense, monochromatic, not engaging text. Something we've seen a lot in the wild, really. When I just utter those words, everyone has an image in their head, I'm sure. This is not hard to imagine because this is normal that we've seen for decades and probably much longer. Black and white and full of legalese. For nonprofit teams with no legal background, that was likely very problematic. How was that traditional legalese format actually performing before you stepped in? And what kind of operational issues did it create in a small nonprofit team with no legal background and maybe not many people who have a legal expertise?
Well, it's an interesting fact because the Funeral Women Lead was a startup non-for-profit, and they were doing their first health summit. So this was kind of their big event to build their business. It's a very cool, Olga, you would love this. It's empowering women in the funeral business. So when the founder got this contract from her lawyer, she knew this was a no-go. The speakers were just as important for the event to bring together and showcase the speakers, but they were also a draw to the health summit. So we really needed to figure out how we were going to make this speaker agreement help us create the event, market the event, and execute the event. So what we did was make a template that could be used to build a relationship so that they could now define. So these speakers were key people in helping develop and this new startup. So we needed to portray during the planning process the benefit for both sides. So the new template then was also built so that the operations manager, like you said, there was no lawyers involved, could go and meet with each speaker. And in that 30-minute phone call, while they're developing this relationship and the event and helping develop the future for Funeral Women Lead, she was able to type into this template the speaker, how long they were going to speak, even details, key elements for the speaker, IP. Can you record the session? And at the same time, also for Funeral Women Lead, they wanted the speakers to help with marketing, create a 3-minute video. So all of this was kind of in the template. So this 30-minute phone call, even though it was kind of developing the plan at the same time, it documented the roadmap that became the contract. So it was just a really positive experience after the template was created and helped. And the success, the event ended up being a great success.
Wow, that's so amazing, Milva. I love that you talking about the contract as a roadmap. And I think this is just so important, like thinking about all those details that are super important for the success of the event and for the success of the relationship. And now I want to ask Blanca, talking about the friction. You often describe contracts as the very first experience someone has with working, with a business, right? Usually you have a little bit of a discussion and eventually the contracts comes in. And usually, we've already said it a few times, it's a really defensive legalese text. And in your practice, I think there was a mismatch because your practice is about helping purposeful founders build strong and values-aligned foundation for meaningful work. So I'm curious to know, when you were asked to work on this coaching agreement that is featured in the book, you wanted to design it as a tool for connection. So going back to the friction, what didn't work with the original draft you were submitted, or you asked to review or to redesign? And why does it matter so much at the onboarding process to build an agreement that build that trust and that connection?
And really intentional about the language that they use throughout the different areas of their business. So when they get a contract, it's the first meaningful experience that their clients have of working with them. But if this document is traditionally drafted, it does instantly create friction because it's largely focused on legal risk and can often come across as defensive, as we've said. So it also occurred to me that their clients are engaging with their services because they're in a vulnerable position. They need help in moving through something difficult. So dense text and a document that's difficult to navigate creates more confusion and overwhelm. And those negative emotions, although unintentional, they do become part of the relationship before they've even started working with their client. So I asked myself what needs to change in order for these client contracts to be a bridge into the relationship instead of a barrier, while of course still remaining legally sound. And so the goal was to design contracts that are an extension of the onboarding process, but not something that slows it down or that creates unnecessary tension and hesitation.
Yeah, I love that. And it reminds me of a story. Actually, I have a really good friend of mine. She's a coach, and I remember she told me that story that she asked another friend who's a lawyer to draft the contract, and she received the draft, and she was like, "There's no way I can present this to my clients. This is so risk centered, and it doesn't reflect how I want to work." So I think she redrafted everything. But so, yeah, just wanted to mention that story, that when you are a coach or you want to build a relationship with someone as a consultant or even as a legal practitioner, I think this is so important. You want to give the right image to your clients. And I think the work you've done, Blanca, with this coaching agreement, it's so impressive. I mean, the design is so beautiful. And all of this was made in Word, Microsoft Word. I mean, there's a lot of white space and tables and timelines, a little bit of color, icons. I mean, I'm such a fan of this piece of work, and I encourage everyone who's watching or listening to access the case study on the website and to take a look at it to get inspired. So I'm curious to know, Blanca, how did you bring all these visual elements together so that it could support the relationship? Tell us a little bit about the process or the strategies you have used to bring clarity and to bring trust built inside the contract.
Well, firstly, thank you for the lovely words. And yeah, like you said, I largely created it in Microsoft Word because I was really keen to avoid having to use any specialist design software. I just didn't want to spend a lot of time learning an entirely new tool before I'd even started experimenting. Plus, it was also really important for me that whatever I created could be shared with others without creating barriers for them as well, because so many people use Word, right, for their contracts. And my clients had said too that what was important for them was that they also had a contract that they could make amendments to as their business evolved without needing to rely on me, their lawyer, to make superficial changes. So for the coaching agreement, which you mentioned, I focused on helping people find the information they're actually looking for. And as you know, people rarely read contracts from start to finish. What they do is they actually scan, and this came up in the user testing that I carried out. And they're scanning for information like, what am I getting? How much is this? What happens next? What happens if something changes? And if we're creating conventional contracts, what we're doing is burying those answers in heavy text paragraphs, and that just doesn't help them. So I use tools, like you said, to make them stand out. Things like modular sections, which is essentially a grid where I put the text in, and that helped me create more white space between the subtitles and the clauses themselves. I use timelines as well to transform the service delivery into a visual roadmap. So things like payment installments and project phases were really clear and transparent. And what I want to say here is, because I sense this from lawyers often, is that the visuals don't replace the clauses, they support them. So it's in addition to, it's creating further clarity and understanding that people take in information differently. Things like pricing tables, and I really gave a lot of thought about how to create clear navigation so clients could orientate themselves really quickly as soon as they were in the document and move through it with more ease. And also brand colors and design components like that. So it feels like an extension of the business rather than being this separate and disconnected thing. So by building accessibility into the contract, we could build trust between the parties from the beginning. And this is important not only for the clients to feel they're in a safe container, because as we said, they're probably arriving with some vulnerability, but also for the service provider, who I suspect hopes to build long-lasting relationships. And this kind of relating helps foster that.
I love this. I'm still reflecting on trust and relating and building beautiful things together. Milva, on your end, you transformed 7-page speaker document into a clean 2-page contract. And readability improved dramatically from going from score 26 to 56, which is lowered the reading grade level from 15s to grade 9. That's a significant lowering of the score, which makes contract and frankly any text much more accessible and enjoyable for most people. I love how you replace the traditional legalese, our favorite things like in witness wear off, classic Shakespearean English. Let's make it official is something you use instead, which I like how modern it is and how it speaks to today's audience. You also utilize, custom GPTs built on your research framework to help, achieve this. So can you tell us how combining plain language and the latest ISO standards with AI helped you design a legal document that is, much more, much better, much more adaptable to its users? And maybe if you can kind of give a slight overview for ISO standards for folks who may not be as familiar with it. We do cover it in the book. That would be great. It's a lot of questions, I know.
Yeah. So I'll focus, the process that I use to do this, which really in a nutshell is I have the 7 pages from the lawyer. I know the provisions that need to be in there. I've taken in ChatGPT and built my own GPT by just uploading my teaching slides. So, my research is focused on you can't probably see my user-centered design to key to contract simplification dissertation, which goes into plain language, the ISO standard, which is about writing for the audience. And you can make it, instead of repeating the name of the business and stuff, it could be you and I. We can change to pronouns. We can write using terminology that is more common. We don't need to change terms of art. That's not what the point is, but you write for the audience. So business terms and business language, take out duplicate words, use proper grammar rules, the ones we learned in 3rd grade. So plain language is one element, structure is another one, and document layout and design. And by taking the 7-pager, plopping it into this custom chat, GPT that took me no time to make, I get a first draft that I put in Word that is not the 7-pager. Now instead, it was probably 4 pages. And then I did the same thing. I used Word. And I changed the color scheme, added the Funeral Women Lead logo. I made tables where I need fill-in. The reading level is a little low because I have a lot of blanks because I was creating a template. So that's a little distorted. But first, who we are, when is the event? What are you doing? How long is your session? So that way you have lead-in sections of everything that needed to be done. And once I now have this template, then I sit down with the owner and I read it out loud to them and go through each section, and we real-time edit it to really signify what is important to them. And the last step, user testing. Now we send it to a speaker and again, real-time do it and adjust it. And then we finish with a template that now can be reused for all the speakers. I did also in the background have like a reimbursement form. I created a simple 1-pager so that we knew how travel expenses were going to be done, what was allowable and not, where the money goes. So I spent a lot of time on the small details that in essence, when you discuss them, are you, of course, I need to get paid. I need to give you my bank account and do this up front now. And that's kind of the proactive law element that comes into these relational contracts. We avoid conflict because we already discussed all the little things that usually go wrong. It's usually the small details that we mess up on, payment, things that needs to happen operationally. So we made sure we had all that takes kind of the life cycle into account in this template that we can plan for the event, hold the event, and finish off our final obligations afterwards smoothly.
Yeah, that's so amazing. So you've mentioned the process, basically like 3 to 4 steps, understanding, so what are the possible friction points and proactively addressing that with the language, the layout, the visuals, all of that in Word. I'm curious to know, because your research is absolutely outstanding. And I think it's very important, like Olga said, to maybe just, dig a little deeper into your research. So legal practitioners, contract practitioners that are watching or listening can better understand, what do we actually mean by plain language and contract simplification? Is it the same thing? Is it different? What it is? And when should we use it?
Well, maybe if I can also add, maybe also, Milva, what I would like to, because I don't think folks are familiar with the readability scores and the reading grade level, and how they're important, and maybe perhaps any other scores that are out there available that folks should utilize. And I think some overview on that, just because you're the one person who's holding PhD in this subject matter, so it may make sense that you educate us all on this.
Well, interestingly, so plain language is really about writing for the audience. So who is it who's going to read it? So as we all know, contracts are usually dense legalese, legal text, but lawyers and judges are only one audience. So we forget that. So it's key that business terms should be written for the business people. Know who your audience is. And then plain language is really about simple grammar rules, right? Short sentences, use words, terminology that is common use today. Legalese is covered in archaic words that some people don't even know what they mean in English because we don't teach them in school. And there's no lesser legal standing if you use a simpler word. So when I teach plain language and stuff, I show the legalese and the equivalent. And then we can take out a lot of the extra verbiage. They like to repeat themselves. So simpler, straight to the point. What you'll learn when you take a 7-page document, a lot of things are repeated. The other thing you do in contract simplification is structure. And the white space matters, but include what are the most important things. Like Blanca said, we skim contracts. We don't read them beginning to end. So it's very important that you number business terms first. Legal terms should be left in legalese because lawyers, if indemnity or liability, we go to court, that's your audience. And then we have administrative clauses, amendments, modification. How are you going to do them? Simple. Write it how you're going to do it. I mean, in my practice, I often write while I talk to my client because they're telling me, I'm like, well, tell me how this works. Well, let's just write it in here. You're writing how you're going to work together. Like the contract truly is a roadmap. And that's where it comes in. So design thinking is another way people explain plain language. And plain language is not just legal, even though part 2 is now legal documents. Technical, all these documents we have to read for. And when we go to the hospital and stuff, is extremely complicated and should be written for those to understand it. Regulations, laws. And then part 5 that's coming now to plain language is going to be document design. It's all about the white space readability, the most important. You know, our cognitive load in our brain works a certain way and how a human reads. And that's how you should design any document that you want people to comprehend. And then the last piece, visuals. Can't forget visuals. It's amazing, just lines. You know, it's creating data in a more visual way. And visual literacy, I love. I was reading your book. You have it from 1978 defined, right? How you use visuals to communicate better. How do you group together similar data? You might need to put lines around it. And that's how we started in contracts. So we have terms that are interconnected. When you can start using ways to visualize multiple pieces of data in one visual, you're really communicating effectively.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you for that explanation. And I do think that practice really improves your ability to do that. And getting, if you have a chance to see other people suffer through your creation, whatever contract you create, that gives you lots of feedback. I encourage people to do that. Let's talk about measurable results, because design isn't just about making contracts look pretty. It is about business impact. I will actually go further and saying lives impact. Watching someone who is suffering through legalese and Shakespearean English will give you a different feeling than watching somebody who just got it, how much they're gonna get paid tomorrow. It's just different. It just hits different. So Blanca, whether it's your coaching agreement or your client engagement letters, what kind of feedback have you received regarding client comprehension? Have you noticed faster sign-offs, a drop in back and forth emails, or perhaps sort of smoother, better, more enjoyable relationship long term?
So the short answer is yes to all of them. But the biggest transformations that were fed back were relational. So clients who were, the readers of the contract told us that they felt much calmer because the design was aligned with the brand. So it was an extension of the coach or the consultant that they already knew. And also the white space helped create less stress in the nervous system. And this is also really important when we're thinking about how people take on information, neurodivergence, and so on. They also understood what they were agreeing to, which is sad to say, but it's unfortunately rare. And they also knew where to find the information without having to send emails for a clarification, which takes a load off the coach or the consultant, who's often a solopreneur doing all the things in their business. In the coaching agreement, clients were able to locate key information. I think it was around 5 times faster than the original version, which means that there's fewer administrative emails and far fewer misunderstandings around important stuff like payment and obligations. And we also, by the redesigning of the contract, we also increased the likelihood of getting the contract signed and getting it signed quickly, because that's a real common challenge with my clients, and then also improving the onboarding experience by making it overall much smoother. So the redesign showed me that when people understand what's expected of them, and also what to expect in return, they arrive in that first meeting feeling more informed, less uncertainty, which means the contract has already started building that trust and kind of doing the job before the work has even begun.
Wow, that's so fantastic, Blanca. I love it. And I know these 2 case studies, the coaching agreement and legal client engagement letters, they're just a snapshot of what you do. And you have completely redesigned your entire legal practice around your conscious contract certification. If you want to say a few words about what it is for the audience, that would be amazing. And design thinking and plain language and legal service design. So I would be curious to know, when clients come to you, and I would imagine they would expect you to deliver, a traditional black and white legal document. And instead, they're going to go through this, human-centered approach. They're going to see visuals. They might see icons, colors, simpler language. What is the overall reaction, and what kind of feedback do you get?
Thank you. Well, it's interesting actually, because since I've taken on the label of the Embodied Lawyer and start to talk about working in the intersection between protection and empowerment, people already start to get an idea that there's something a little different about how I do my work. But when we get deeper into what these contracts look like, and how they can transform the experience of both the client and also the service provider, the first thing that they say is, I've never seen a contract like this before. But of course it makes sense. Why wouldn't other parts of their business, why wouldn't their contracts reflect the same important parts of their business, their values and so on, and the importance of relationality in their relationships with their clients. People do expect something dense and intimidating, and instead they experience something that feels calm and clear, and what's really important is genuinely welcoming document to the reader. But what's most interesting is that instead of rushing through the contract or signing it without reading it, they're actually engaging with it. Clients start to understand their contracts as well, their own contracts that reflect the terms that are supporting their business. And because of that, they also begin to ask better questions and feel more informed and more empowered. You did mention my conscious contracts training. It's a model that focuses very much on the relational, co-creative aspect of coming together of 2 or more parties. And it's really helped me understand the fundamentals of relational contracting, focusing first on the foundations of that relationship through a shared vision, mission, and values, which in itself, as it's being created, builds trust. And the second aspect of giving the parties tools and a way to have difficult conversations, empowering them to have those and knowing how they can each deal with the discomfort of rupture and repair. And that's what I have ended up weaving through my contract design, which really speaks to founders of purpose-led businesses who are actually quite used to leading from their values, and so it doesn't feel that strange to them. But they're always curious to see what it looks like, and they get very excited.
Oh, that's amazing. And so before we wrap up, I want to ask the same question to Milva, because Milva, like, this speaker agreement is just one tiny example of what you do. I mean, you have a really long and super impressive career in large organization, as a consultant, as a founder, working with tech and AI. So I would love to hear also from your experience, what is, how do people react to this approach? People meaning the business people, the non-lawyers, and maybe also the lawyers, like your colleagues and clients. What's the reaction you get? Are they surprised? Are they delighted? Are they a little bit frustrated? Are they hesitant? Tell us a little bit about that experience of the change management, right? How do we start changing our old habits for new habits, whether it's a plain language, readability, visuals, all of that?
I'd say the revolution's going way slower than I had hoped. So I get excited over this and seeing them, but it's not the case. Even for small clients, even for non-lawyers, they'll look at it and go, this can't be legally sound. And so there is constantly an educational element as we walk through this and change it, because it is shocking when you get a contract that's not black and white, colorful with pictures, and people think contracts have to be black and white. Well, they don't. But the movement's happening. It's slow. I'd say it's a mixed bag of, wow, I love it. Mixed bag of, can this be right? At the end, everything I do includes training. So I'm a consultant. So my goal is to finish the work and leave and make them independently be able to move forward. And so far, small, even large businesses, I've created training packages to help smaller departments. So to take off workload from lawyers. And it works. It works. Once you explain it, right? We all as individuals sign contracts every week, right? There is no required format, right? The key is that it tents there and the elements of a legally binding document. So while I'd love to say people love them, it's not the case. It is a mixed bag, but it's happening. The change is happening. And this book is a great example to show how much it's happening, and it's global. It's really a global phenomenon.
Well, I guess it's time for us to start wrapping up. And I like to wrap up. Maybe I'll do a round of what I like to do usually at the end of my episodes, is asking for one takeaway from everyone. I'll start with you, Tessa, my host. I know you have very few opinions about this. So maybe distill it into one, and then Blanca and Milva, that would be an order in which we're going to go. So what is your one takeaway from this conversation?
Well, thank you for inviting me to share a takeaway. I would say, like, there are very simple things I have learned from Milva and Blanca that any lawyer can start implementing, very low risk, like all the white space and the line dividers and tables. I mean, those are typically the things that do make your document feel a lot more professional. All the white space, when everything is cramped and dense and small font. I mean, as a lawyer, you are used to it, but your business clients, they're probably not going to like it so much, and they're probably going to ask for, clarifications, support, feedback. And to some extent, we take pride that we are here to help, but we can reduce that workload by creating a easier to skim and scan document. So all the white space between the different sections, bigger headings, maybe line dividers and tables that you can use for what's included, what's not included. So making it easier at a glance for your user to understand, okay, well, this thing is not going to be included. So there's no need to argue about that post signature. So making things clearer by by bringing the white space, line dividers table. I think those are really simple things anyone can do in Word. So if you want to start, I would say start with that. How about, I don't know, Olga, who are you going to nominate after for the
I think it was Blanca. Blanca, go for it.
I would say don't make assumptions. As lawyers, we have a lot of unlearning to do in order to start to become comfortable with what is essentially experimenting. So, don't be too quick to come up with a solution, because that's what we've been trained to do. But instead, the invitation is to stay curious and start asking questions like, where do clients get stuck? Which questions keep coming up and which clauses are regularly misunderstood, because it's there that you get your design opportunities, and you can start putting simple tools in place available in Word, like Tessa just talked about. But just start small and try something out, test it, see what you learn from it, incorporate the learnings, and just take it from there. Small but mighty steps.
I love it. And you, Milva?
Well, I think my takeaway is that technology is here. Generative AI is here. And as Blanca said, test it, use it, plop it in there, change it to plain language. You know what you're doing. You're an expert. You read that contract. Is the intent there? Is it the agreement? And if you can understand it and you can see that people you're working with can understand it, that's the intentional communication. You didn't need the legalese. So use the tools. It makes it so easy now to redraft. Say, I'm done with this legalese. Let me try. Plop it in non-confidential information, get the plain language version, and then change it. Add back the words you do like that are terms of art. But it's so easy to do now. And you, the expert, you know contracts. You know what you're doing. You start reading and writing and doing it, you'll get it right. But it's so much faster, easier. And then you don't have to translate it when you hand it to your client.
Absolutely. I love the be careful what you plop in, the confidentiality, caution, admonishment. I love that. Definitely be careful, and also change your settings. There's the way to do it in the LLM near you to make sure that it's not used for training. If that's not what you want to be sharing with the world, those are definitely things to do. And yes, translation is one of the best functions in LLMs today. It's a core function. It is exceedingly good at doing that. Translating from legalese to standard English is a translation function. It could also do a language that you love as well. So, but I love this conversation, and we can go for a very long time. And I'd love to thank my co-host Tessa for everything, really, for helping with preparing for this and leading this and being an amazing contributor to this book that we all love. And thank you so much for your insights. And Blanca, Milva, thank you both so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom and incredible case studies. Definitely, folks, go check it out. They are available. And yes, Visual Literacy for Lawyers is the book that made those companions available on the visualiqforlawyers.com. You can download them for free, and many more case studies. All of them are referenced here, but they're standalone, and you can read and enjoy them and see many examples and find that there's really more than one way to accomplish same and different goals with your contract design and contract writing and contract simplification. Whatever adventure you're on, you can get some answers both in the book and the companion. So thank you all. Thank you so much for joining. And viewers, thank you again for joining. Thank you for tuning in. And if you want to have visual transformation, engagement letter templates, and sort of before and after, I highly encourage you to check out Blanca's and Milva's examples and many more available on visualiqforlawyers.com to order your copy. You can also do it of the ABA book. You can also do it from the website as well. But definitely check out more than 20 case studies We're very proud of them. We wanted to make them available to everyone, regardless of whether you are purchasing a book. And most importantly, we know that this book is written after lots of folks all over the world have been doing lots of research, from various PhD theses to various works in the wild. And we wanted to make sure that we acknowledge it and share many examples. So thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you for stopping by. We hope you enjoyed this episode of Notes to My Legal Self. Know someone who'd make a great guest? Let us know. Self-nominations are encouraged. They are an act of courage. Remember, the future of law is bright. Enjoy your in-house practice. It's an adventure of a lifetime. See you soon.